Am I overreacting to my girlfriend's experience of assaulting homeless people in the past? So I've been dating my girlfriend for like 9 months. She just recently turned 26 and we were celebrating her birthday. At the end of the night, we were both kind of drunk and were talking about our craziest stories from college. She said that her boyfriend at the time and a group of guys and girls would sometimes go out at night and mess with homeless dudes, including beating them up with bats. She also referred to them as junkies and generally dehumanizing terms about them, and she even mentioned that it was great stress relief. She can get pretty crazy sometimes and has a bit of a mean streak, honestly, but it really shocked me when she said this. I thought she was joking because she was laughing while telling the story, but as I acted skeptical, she kept affirming it was true. I just played along and kinda laughed, thinking she was just drunk. The next day, it still bothered me subconsciously, so I asked her again about it casually, and she said yeah, it was true. The thing that disturbed me though was there was no remorse. She told the story like a LOL, good times kind of story. I think if she was embarrassed about it, I would have felt different. I still tried to ignore it over the next few days, but I obviously wasn't able to because I ended up researching online for information about similar crimes in that city at that time. I didn't find anything, by the way. Unfortunately, I definitely believe her at this point though. She never does these kind of jokes over days, plus I can just tell she's being truthful, just knowing her. Anyway, like I said, it continued to bother me, so I brought it up one more time a couple days later. This time, I was more serious, basically just straight up asking how could she not feel bad about that. I was honestly just curious. She got kinda pissed this time. She asked me if it turns me on, and that's why I keep bothering her about it. I said no, but I just couldn't imagine doing something like that myself, so that's why I'm asking. Then she started saying stuff like, "Why are you judging me about stuff that happened years ago?" and saying it's none of my business who she slept with back then or anything else about her life. That's when it occurred to me that she might have thought I was jealous or something about her ex, since he was apparently one of the guys in that group. She might think I'm trying to guilt trip her out of jealousy related to him or something, which I'm not. But anyway, that was how it ended, and I'm obviously not going to bring it up again. Even though I honestly considered breaking up over this, I kind of saw where she was coming from and that it was a long time ago, and maybe I'm being kind of a dick for judging her over this? What do you think? I'm no saint at all, but I can't help that it bothers me. I can't look at her the same way now, and I really think it might be over. Thanks for your advice. Let's read some relevant comments here. User 1 says, "No, but why wasn't this a deal breaker for you?" OP replies, "I think it was. I'm just saying I was second guessing it. It's hard to process." User 2 replies, "Why the F are you with an evil person like that? Damn bro, you're a POS also." OP replies, "Sorry, I'm not trying to justify it. It's just really hard for me. But people do change. I was a totally different person in college too. This would be so much easier for me if she was just sorry about it." User 3 says, "But she's not sorry. She's mad you keep bringing it up and acting like the dude she did those horrific things with is the problem, and not the assault and battery on innocent people. This shouldn't be hard, dude." And then the top comment, User 4 says, "She's a psychopath. She admits to violently attacking people. You aren't married. You can leave. Knowing she's capable of this, you're underreacting by staying with her. One day she could easily do something like that to you. So take precautions when you leave." Now let's read an update that was posted on July 31st, which was 1 week later. "I just wanted to let everyone know that I broke up with my girlfriend. I absolutely do not condone any violence against unhoused people. That's the reason I asked about it, because it seriously shocked me. But then everyone turned it on me and acted like I was condoning it. I'm sorry, but it just takes a lot of time to process when you're in a relationship with someone. You can't just end it like that. Plus, you know I try to be really mindful of things like shaming women for past mistakes in relationships. The last thing I want is to be one of those guys. And when she accused me of that herself, I started believing I may be wrong. But anyway, when I told her we were gonna have to break up because of what she told me, she actually looked shocked. I think she believed I was joking at first, but I straight up told her how wrong she was for doing that, which I hadn't had the courage to do before. I said how she could have even killed one of those guys and not known it, etc. She didn't have much to say, just looking really angry, honestly. But anyway, once I showed I was serious, she started guilt-tripping me about how I'm trying to shame her for her past, etc. The same point she had made before. But in the end, she started insulting me really harshly and eventually turned it around on me, and it was like she was breaking up with me instead. However she wants to think of it is fine with me. Some of the things she said were really hurtful, if I'm being honest, but I know she was just angry and I just have to keep reminding myself that I did the right thing. As for reporting the crimes, like some people said, I did try, but I had trouble talking to a person at that police department over the phone. It's across the county from where I am. The phone recording tells me to file reports online. The online forum asks me if I know who did the crime, and when I check yes, it tells me I have to file the report on the phone or in person. Anyway, I'm still working on that, but it seems like there's a lot of bureaucracy to go through. Sorry for not responding to a lot of you before, but I was really overwhelmed. Even though this isn't my main account, I want people to know I did the right thing. Take care. There's not a lot to say or react to here. I mean, you did the right thing. It's always kind of a slippery slope confronting someone about issues that they may have had or things that they'd done before you started dating, because it's like when you enter a relationship, you're accepting that person as they are, flaws and all, and nothing that they've done before you guys got together should really affect the overall balance of the relationship. However, beating up homeless people with a baseball bat and showing no remorse for it, that may still be like a latent personality trait. So I think that the advice that OP received from the Redditors, let's just say the safest, most logical route to go, because I think she may still have some of those latent anger catharsis issues. So yeah, leave her. Good job. Story 2. My husband ditched us to go see the Grateful Dead, and I'm done. My husband is a deadhead. His entire identity is built around this band, and he's seen them in their various incarnations over 50 times. Normally I don't mind, but 2 years ago I was in an accident that left me unable to work. I now receive a tiny disability check once a month for it. He works, but it hasn't been easy with the cost of everything skyrocketing. My disability check doesn't even cover the full cost of our rent, even though our rent is the lowest in our area. Long story short, Dead & Company is made up of what remains of the Grateful Dead, and this is supposed to be their last tour. We live on the East Coast, where he's already seen them twice, which was already more than we can afford. But a few days ago, he took out a loan and bought tickets to go see their final show in San Francisco, along with round-trip, air and hotel, and whatever else he needs out there. Me and the kids are left with $10, some pocket change, and what feels like a very big FU. School starts back in a month, and the kids both need school supplies and clothes. I could name 1,000 things we need. Things that we're going without while money is tight, but this is what he chose to do. We're not going to starve over the weekend, but I don't even have enough money to go get them a pizza while their dad is having a blast on the other side of the country and hanging out with his online deadhead fam. I understand that this band means a lot to him, and I tried to be supportive of that, but I feel like he's crossed a line here. He refused to talk about how much all of this is costing us, but when I looked up the cost of concert tickets, flight tickets, hotels, transportation, and food, the bare minimum figure I get is still around $1,000. It could very well be, and probably is, a lot more than that. I've supported him through a lot of things, but this weekend, while he's off having fun and leaving us to fend for ourselves, I'm slowly planning my divorce. I'm playing nice while I get all my ducks in a row, but this is it for me. I'm tired of watering down essentials like shampoo or laundry soap, living off rice and beans just for him to turn around and take out a loan so he can go to a show all by himself across the country. Edit to say I commented somewhere below to let everyone know the current plan. Apologies if you have to scroll to find it. Then OP adds an update to a deleted comment on July 15th, which was the next day. You guys, I wish I had the time to thank you all individually for the overwhelming support I've received here. I really was not expecting that when I posted. Even though I'm dealing with something so effed up, I feel so much better than I did a few hours ago, knowing there's so many decent and kind people out there. So thank you for that. I mean it. As for everything else, divorce is inevitable. He might not be a total monster, and I'm sure on any other day, I would have been able to tell you 1,000 different things that are good about him. But this is a huge betrayal, and I just don't see how we're going to come back from that. We're only barely making ends meet now, and this one single selfish act of his leaves us thousands of dollars in the hole overnight. I'm occasionally capable of small miracles, but pulling money I don't have out of my ass isn't one of them. It's the weekend now, so I won't even be able to think about speaking to a lawyer until Monday at the earliest. I wish I could say I'm packing up now, but the reality is I'm stuck here, at least for a little while. The $10 I have in my account doesn't go very far these days. I'll have money again on the 1st, so tomorrow I'll be packing just the essentials, birth certificates and the like, and taking them to my friend's house for safekeeping for now. I'll also be calling my landlord to see about having my name removed from the lease agreement. I'm not going to tell my husband I'm leaving yet, though. He's going to come home and tell me what a beautiful experience it was. Tell me how much he wishes I could have been there, and how he'll take me one of these days and make it up to me eventually. And I'll smile and play along for the next 2 weeks. I'm not sure where I'm going yet, but I do know I'm not going to pay 3/4 of the rent just to be immediately broke again and have the lights and water and phone all turned off a few days later because he puts us in this financial pit. I hope his social media fam are impressed enough by his presence in Instagram stories to make all this worth it to him. I hate it. I can't even begin to explain how hurt and shocked and tired and angry I am. I'm also numb. I don't know how it's possible to feel all this at the same time, but hey, here I am. Thank you, though, from the bottom of my heart. And for the handful of peons wringing their hand about me being a leech and sucking the joy out of his life, keep in mind that I worked from the time I was 16 up until I got hurt, and there were plenty of times throughout this relationship where I was the breadwinner. I provided for him during those times because that's what people in relationships do for one another. I'm very sorry you've never cared enough about someone else or had anyone care about you to understand that. I draw disability now because I paid into a system that was put into place to do for people exactly what it's doing for me right now. Edit. I appreciate the offers. I really do. But if you need to donate anything, please donate to your local animal shelter or food closet or a needy family in your neighborhood. This blew up way bigger than I thought my rant was worth to anyone. But the kids and I are going to be okay. We're leaving tonight to stay with a couple of friends. Everything is moving very quickly now. It's sort of surreal. And then OP updates the original post. Update. I wasn't expecting I'd need to update already, but he knows. Someone here decided to share my vent elsewhere, so he saw it on Facebook. He's angry that I've made him look like an a-hole. I told him all I did was talk about it without naming him, and if people decide he's an a-hole based on his actions, he's got no one to blame but himself. I'm so nervous. I'm shaking, and I feel like I might vomit. Some friends have offered to come help me pack and let me and the boys stay with them until I can figure out something more permanent. Edit. Also, please don't try to send me or anyone pretending to be me / pretending to collect on my behalf anything. We're in good hands right now, and we're not going to go without. I figured since this whole thing blew up today, I might as well tell all my friends what's going on, and they've really pulled up for us. So we're definitely going to be okay. Now let's read relevant comments here. User 1 says, divorce him. He's made it clear he doesn't care about you or your kids. Anyone that selfish needs to be held accountable, and the only way to do that is by leaving him. OP's response was, I'm finally realizing this. He's always been a bit selfish, but usually it's smaller things, like buying one of his fam birthday rounds with our last $5. We were already struggling because his last 2 East Coast shows really set us back hard. He missed work for both those shows, but we could have skimmed by because he used his PTO for those shows. But not only did he take out a loan for San Fran, he has no PTO left and he's missing 3 days of work, which means his next paycheck is going to be super slim and we'll have a new loan payment to make. I'm expecting this to set us back at least 2 or 3 months, but probably more. The kids go back to school in a month. The youngest had a massive growth spurt and literally none of his clothes fit. He's got a single pair of jeans, 2 pairs of shorts, and I think 5 t-shirts that he can still wear. I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I'm tired of making all these sacrifices just so he can go do whatever he feels like. User 2 says, that is shockingly bad. He doesn't care if you and his own children are low on food and necessities. If he's gotten this low, who knows what he'll do in the future? And you said he's always been selfish. This goes beyond selfish, and I agree with all the other comments about divorce. There's no going back from this, at least that's my opinion. I wouldn't be able to ever see him the same again, and I'd be absolutely heartbroken. I'm sorry he did this. Don't let anyone downplay his actions. OP says, I keep going back and forth between heartache and rage. We've been together for almost 20 years, and I cannot believe he would stoop so low to just leave us like that. Life feels so surreal right now. I have a doc appointment this week that I'm gonna have to call and cancel first thing Monday morning because I don't have the money for it anymore. This is so effed. It's 8 in the morning and I didn't sleep at all last night worrying about this stuff. I can't wrap my head around it. And then another update. Filing for divorce tomorrow, but I'm in the middle of a lawsuit. Will either of these affect the other? Posted on July 17th, which was 3 days later. I was injured in a work-related accident that has severely affected my mobility, and this process has been ridiculously slow, in part because my lawyer told me we needed to know how well I might expect to recover and a slew of other things, and those things require time and doctors. I've been basically guaranteed a fairly large settlement. The problem is, I'm planning on filing for divorce tomorrow. I had a fairly solid career before my accident, while my husband sort of skipped from job to job. I was fine with that at the time, but I'm on disability now, and my husband has made a series of increasingly awful financial decisions that, well, let's just say they're bad and I can't stay married to him anymore. Are either of us entitled to alimony? Will he be entitled to any of this settlement when it comes through? If I collect child support from him, is that going to have any bearing on my other case? I'm calling my attorney and maybe a divorce attorney tomorrow if my current attorney can't do it. Hopefully he can recommend someone, but I don't know how long it'll take to set up a meeting, and I guess I just wanted to ask here first, so I'll have some kind of heads up. Married almost 20 years in South Carolina, if that matters. My accident was about 2 years ago. He's never acted as my caretaker or anything because I stayed at my mother's home with our children, where she did most of the caretaking when I actually required it. Let's read some more relevant comments here. User 1 says, he shouldn't be, but this is something you should talk to your divorce lawyer about. They'll have far more information and the steps you will need to take to protect yourself and your kids. This is a little above Reddit's pay grade. OP says, I'm planning on doing that ASAP. I'm just very nervous and freaking out a little because, of course, everything blew up over the weekend when all of the offices are closed. 9 a.m. can't get here fast enough. Thank you, though. User 2 says, congrats on moving on. It's never easy. I think that the settlement/payment should be separate property if received after the legal separation/filing date. When you file, you list community assets/debts and separate property/debts, which include things you had before the marriage and had after the separation. I would think that since you don't have a judgment or payment yet, you should be entitled to that as a separate property. OP replies, thank you. It's been nerve-wracking and kind of scary. When you file, you list community assets/debts and separate property/debts, which include things you had before the marriage and had after the separation. This part scares me. A few days ago, I found out he'd taken out a loan for personal reasons. I have no idea where or how much it was for. All I know is I didn't get a dime of it. I tried to guesstimate how much he got based on his plans, but I've been told by others that number is likely way off. I'm worried that he's done this before, because while he makes decent money, we've been so broke and barely scraping by. After bills and stuff, he should have at least $500 left over every month. More if he's had any raises since starting, but we can't even afford the basics anymore. So if it turns out he's been getting credit cards or other loans and owes a ton of money without my knowledge, am I on the hook for that, even if I didn't benefit from it in any way? User 3 says, unfortunately, the most likely answer is yes. Sign up for a credit monitoring service and run a credit report. Better yet, sign up for 2 accounts, one in his name. You'll be able to see what loans and credit cards are taken out and account payment history and balances. And, more importantly, lock your credit so he can't take out any more cards or loans. You'll have to lock with all 3 credit score companies. Do this now. And now we have a new update. OP has posted an update in the comments. This came 1 year later, which was on July 30th. Hey, this is my post. I couldn't sleep tonight, and I was up watching a Reddit reader guy for background noise when I saw my story. That was a really strange feeling because it's literally been a year. I can't believe anyone even remembered this. Can I update here in the comments? There's not much to tell, even though it's been so long. My soon-to-be ex found out because my original post made the rounds through several dead groups and pages on Facebook and TikTok, and Twitter and who knows where, so he saw it almost immediately. I don't know if anyone actually realized it was him or not, but he's very active in those online communities, and seeing people rip on him, even if they didn't realize it was him, gave his ego big boo-boos. He deleted all of his social media because of it. Divorce is ongoing. It turns out my husband had taken out almost $40,000 in loans. Loans to pay off loans, and the reason we were so broke was because over half of his paycheck was going to pay them back every week. He was lying to me about how much he earned so that he wouldn't have to explain where it was all going. Also, he was participating in these gift exchanges and fundraisers and all kinds of stuff in his jam band groups, basically trying to play off like he was some big shot. For For birthdays, someone might post their Amazon wish list and he'd buy them 2 or 3 big items from it. Or they'd do Secret Santa and he'd go overboard, etc., etc. I guess he got addicted to the praise. I don't actually know, but he managed to ruin his life for online brownie points. And yes, he was 100% banking on my settlement to pay it all back. Shocker, I know. I'm still confused how he managed to hide all this from me. He lost our rented home almost immediately after I left, because I was paying the bulk of that. He lost his car because he'd taken out a title pawn loan on that and couldn't afford the payments when I left. As for me, not much has changed. Divorce takes forever, especially when your a-hole partner keeps fighting it. My lawsuit isn't settled yet, but there was a mediation a couple of months ago, so we're close, and I won't have to give him a penny of it. And I'm not responsible for his debt, so there's my silver lining. For now, I'm living in subsidized housing with the kids, which is actually kind of nice. I have more money now being a disabled single mom than I had paying rent for my deadbeat husband who was making almost $30 an hour. He lied to me about that, and only had to pay basic utilities, lights, water, his insurance. It's crazy that I can take the boys to see a movie now as an occasional treat and still be able to buy socks and shoes and toothpaste. When I was with him, he constantly made me feel like he was having to sacrifice a kidney if one of the boys wanted a Coke. He hasn't even seen the kids much since March, but they barely seem to notice. It's a bit sad, but I'm happy they're not upset about it. So that's where I'm at. I know it's not much of an update, but these things move very slowly in South Carolina. If anyone reads this, don't message me. I abandoned all messages when I started getting an onslaught of creepy men offering to help me in exchange for favors, and others telling me I should have died, I'm a burden on this poor helpless husband, I'm a drain on society, all that fun stuff, and I stopped reading them. Much love and appreciation for those who've been supportive. Soon-to-be ex needs to grow up. It's not very often that you see such a egregious mishandling of money and financial decisions. Not just the concert thing, but like taking out all these loans to buy Secret Santa gifts for your coworkers and trying to be a big shot in an online community. I mean, this is like the bravado that you would expect out of a 14 or 15-year-old boy that's just like trying to impress some people at school. Not someone that's been married for 20 years and has, multiple children. So yeah, you should have left this guy a long time ago. Kudos OP for being so patient and, just bearing through it for 20 years. But that is just absolutely nutso, and glad that you got away. Glad that things are looking better for you financially. And yeah, that's all we got. Story 3. My husband is a human gas chamber. I went on vacation for 3 weeks with some friends and left my husband at home because he didn't want to go and he had to watch our dog. I came home yesterday and found out he bought some honeycombs from our friend's father and has been sitting in the living room just eating the honeycomb. Like the whole thing with all the beeswax and bits in it. I told him it wasn't healthy, but he says the wax is edible and he's eaten like 6 of them. Let's read a relevant comment. Commenter says, honey wax is edible, just it might cause a lot of gas if you eat a lot of honeycombs. OP replies, oh goody, more gas. I think I'm going to ask my friend if I can move in with him back in Korea while my husband degasses himself because he also ate an entire 15-pound bag of red lentils in DoorDash taco hell for the past 3 weeks. Now back to the original post on July 1st, which was 40 minutes later. So, about 3 weeks ago, I flew to South Korea for a vacation with friends who live there. My husband didn't go and said he'd be fine staying home and watching the house and dog. I trusted him because he's a 40-year-old adult man and assumed he'd be able to feed himself like a sane person, despite him possessing the cooking ability of a cactus. I was wrong. I should have dragged him and the dog along with me to another country. What my husband decided to do during his 3 weeks without me was absurd. I would have been happier if he'd cheated on me instead, because what he did was order nothing but Taco Bell through DoorDash after he somehow broke my stove by cooking an entire 15-pound bag of red lentils all at once. Then he didn't bother to get a bowl for his lentils, he just ate them straight from the pot and stuffed the pot into the fridge and broke one of the shelves inside it. Now, realizing his mistake, he decided to order nothing but terrible tacos for the remaining 2 weeks while getting high on medical marijuana. Also, for some reason, he bought a bunch of honeycombs from one of our friend's fathers and decided those made a good snack and has eaten nothing but beeswax and honey for the last few days because he's some kind of weird alien in a human disguise. Apparently honeycombs give you gas, and lentils give you gas, and Taco Bell gives you gas. So now it's today and I'm awoken by what sounds like someone revving a motorcycle in my bedroom, followed by the stench of the fiery pits of hell itself. It's 5:30 in the morning. He gets up and goes to use the toilet as I'm opening up the windows in a poor attempt to ventilate the house, but it's too late. He doesn't even have a solid poop. It's just 10 minutes of gas. Like 20 minutes of non-stop farts, followed by a huge gasp of air, and then another 20 seconds of gas. By this time, the dog has hidden under my couch because it doesn't know what those loud honking noises are and fears for its safety. I consider joining it, but continue to open every window in my house. It's 62 degrees out and windy. The wind just blows the fart smell around the house. My husband has left the bathroom and has walked upstairs. It sounds like there's a small two-stroke engine in his pants. I can't take it anymore and scream that I'm going to get breakfast at the diner and leave him. I bring the dog with me because the dog follows me out of the house because it also doesn't want to be here right now. So I'm at the diner waiting for my husband to de-gas himself while the dog sits underneath the table next to me wearing a pink leash kid harness that my friends bought for me as a gag gift that has my name and emotional support human on it that the waitress thought was some kind of in-joke. This is the start of my morning. I hope it's not as stinky as yours. Relevant comment. The commenter says, have you considered calling the military? They may be able to weaponize your husband for later use. OP replies, I think that violates the Geneva Convention somehow. And then an update comment, which was posted 1 hour later. Update. It's 9 o'clock and my husband texted me to tell me to rent a carpet cleaner from the Dollar General because he trusted a fart and shat all over the living room floor. It's gonna be one of those days. Now let's read some more comments. The commenter says, how people behave when they're on their own reveals their fundamental values and beliefs. OP says, at least he mowed the lawn, even though I think he did it while high and tried to mow his name into our yard. Commenter says, OMG, I have tears in my eyes. That was some funny crap, no pun intended. OP says, I've drawn a picture of myself in MS Paint to illustrate how my day is going, and then posts a link to the image. Commenter, which was downvoted, says, divorce him because he sounds worthless. OP says, I would, but short guys are hard to find. He's 5'2" and takes it with pride, even when my friends bought him a Power Wheels Corvette for his 40th birthday. And now update comment number 2, which was about 1.5 hours later. Update. It's 10:23 and I've returned home after a lovely day of walking my dog around the park, getting coffee, renting a carpet cleaner, and tuning my motorcycle to a house that smells like Febreze and Lysol. I took so long screwing around that my husband came to harass our neighbors and borrow a spot-bought carpet cleaner that didn't clean our carpet. I gave him the instructions for the carpet cleaner I rented for stupid amount of money from the Dollar General, and I'm now locked in our bedroom. He's allowed in when the house is fixed and he's no longer filled with more gas than the Hindenburg. Now let's read some more relevant comments. The commenter says, I trusted him because he's a 40-year-old adult man. Oxymoron? OP says, you'd think after being married for 10 years and knowing each other intimately, we'd know how smart we were. Apparently not. Apparently when you turn 40, you have a midlife crisis and suddenly turn into a 4-year-old who can drive and buy things, lots of random things, like a 45-pound bag of lentils or 550 Pop-Tarts or 1,360 Luigi's Italian ice cups. And then, even though you haven't had any children, you become a mother to a man-child. Commenter replies, I turned 50 this year, and this post makes me proud and happy about what I've achieved as an adult, partner, and father compared to the slow-motion car crash you describe here. I still fart, but I also eat and make salad. Good lord. OP says, we're a disgrace to our generation, but life is still fun. Commenter replies, I really need to understand the decision behind making and trying to eat 15 pounds of red lentils all at once. That just seems like the start of many bad decisions, which were clearly made. The only thing that would have made that worse would have been deciding sprouts were a good idea. OP replies, I think he was high and decided to make all the food in case he was still hungry. Commenter says, he's a grown-ass man and cannot cook. Damn, like cooking is not that hard. There are simple yet healthy recipes, like Google and YouTube exist. OP says, once upon a bar mitzvah, he tried to cook stew in a pressure cooker and caused a Chernobyl-level explosion that did $20,000 worth of damage to my parents' house. He hasn't been allowed to cook anything again. But he did, and my kitchen suffered. And now an update comment 3, which was over 1 hour later. Possibly final update if I don't survive. It's 11:40. I can't hear the carpet cleaner anymore, but I can still hear the horns of Jericho as my husband continues to fart. He's smoking too, and the pot smoke and farts are leaching into the bedroom where I'm unsafely locked inside. Oh yay. And then update comment 4, which was 6+ hours later, about 10 hours from the OG post. Update again. I survived the gas attack. I fell asleep and woke up to a bajillion comments on this post. A dog that also shat on the floor, and a husband that is now gas-free but has been on the toilet for so long his legs went to sleep, so he fell off the toilet and ripped the towel rack off the wall. He did try to put the towel rack back, but now I need to buy drywall anchors because if you look at it funny, it just falls off again. He says, I'm never doing that again, but he'll probably do something similar in 6 months because apparently I'm on the Truman Show or something. Let's read a few more relevant comments on how he broke the stove. He didn't use a big enough pot, and molten lentils spilled all over the stove and went into the burners and turned into charcoal that now immediately catches on fire as soon as you light it up. He also just shoved the red-hot pot into the fridge and shattered a glass shelf with it. Commenter says, bad news, this isn't going to be over soon. A 15-pound bag of lentils? That's insane behavior. He's going to fart forever. OP replies, he stopped a few hours ago while I was unconscious. It was like the 1812 overture, saving all the big cannon shots for the end. Commenter says, what kind of psychopath just eats red lentils? No rice, no other veggies, no proteins, just lentils. This is part of the story that seems like it can't be written, so I'm forced to take your word for it. I'd seriously watch out for that dude. OP replies, the kind of idiot that accidentally orders a 45-pound bag of them last year and did so again and tried to cover up his mistake by consuming the whole bag like some kind of human black hole. Commenter says, LMAO, I can't. I gotta ask, was he like this when you met, or was he still Barney Rubble? OP says, no, he was a normal, sane short guy with an unreliable car and a struggling small business. A decade and one medical marijuana card later, and it's the Goofy movie. He uses the medical marijuana for sciatica issues. Commenter says, you know, I frequently read stories like this on here, and I just can't help but to wonder how men like this get into relationships. Like, how do these men manage to dupe a woman into marrying him, into having sex with him? How does this happen? OP says, you know he didn't start out like this, right? We've been together for almost a decade and we're comfortable with each other and our weird escapades. He's done dumber stuff, like getting an AirPod lodged so far up his nose it had to be removed with forceps at the ER, like that scene from Total Recall. And then update comment number 5, which was 4 hours later, 14 hours from the OG post. Maybe final update before I go to sleep. My husband can actually take care of himself. He just can't cook, even though he says he can, and his family thinks cooking is using the magical microwave box for everything that's not toast. My husband has tried to make toast in the microwave, but obviously that didn't work. He also wasn't like this when we met. He was just a normal, awkward, nerdy guy from a kind of poor family. He did take out the trash, do the laundry, feed the dog his special dog food, because my dog is diabetic, mow the lawn, and buy some groceries. Unfortunately, he blew some fuse trying to use the Keurig, toaster oven, and microwave all at the same time and gave up on trying to zap food for himself and resigned to doing DoorDash and Uber Eats for everything after he also broke my stove. I think the beeswax is what did him in, because he said he was fine until he ate like 7 honeycombs in a row. Let's read another relevant comment on OP's background. I'm not Korean, I'm Polish. My friends are Korean and British Korean and moved to Korea 6 months ago. Commenter says, your husband is a complete effing idiot. OP replies, I know, but he's my idiot. Every village has at least one. And then update comment 6, which was 1 hour later. He's still alive, but he lives in the bathroom with a big garage fan running while he's inside. It sounds like there's a small biplane in there. And then let's read some more relevant comments. Commenter says, I was not prepared to read this post. I had a hunch it was going to be something about farting gas, but I did not expect such an eloquently written post. OP, are you a writer by profession? You have a finesse about your descriptive details in the bathroom situation that I can clearly picture the scene step by step. I don't have anything else to say, but I wouldn't blame you for wanting out of the relationship. I was married to a man once, and him cheating on me was the best thing because we divorced and I've never been happier. OP says, I write stories for our D&D games and also questionable fan fiction. My husband's cooking skills are atrocious, but his other skills make up for that. Commenter says, how does this man have a wife? OP replies, I don't really know either. When I met him, he was 30 and still living with his parents, but for a legitimate reason. They're a lot older and need living assistance. He still fetches his father's medication every week or so. Commenter replies, wait, this trip to Korea was to visit a friend you used to want to bone? You better bring that howitzer ass home a bag of Taco Bell tonight, sis. You got a man who isn't crippled by insecurity. OP says, no, because I have severe FOMO and I've never been to Korea. My Korean friend is 6'7", and he broke it off with me because I'm 2 feet shorter than he is, and he said it was too awkward for him. I also got mistaken for his daughter. Update comment 7, which was posted on July 2nd, 2024, aka the next day. Warning update. So apparently you can't digest beeswax, so my husband has turned into a human shotgun that's entirely powered by gas. He says it comes in waves, so it's gas and then beeswax and then gas followed by more beeswax. I think he ate the entire beehive. Also, as hard as it is to believe, my husband can cook, but he can only cook stuff on a barbecue because he can't tell when it's done if he tries to use the stove. And the key to our barbecue cover got lost somewhere, so now I have to break the lock off or cut the cover. Let's read some more relevant comments. Commenter says, so how was South Korea? OP replies, I offended my friend's mom, worked an electric scooter, got brutalized by an old Korean lady in a massage table, and melted my GI tract with kimchi. Commenter replies and later deleted, sugarcoat it however you want, but he's a grown man who doesn't know basic life skills like how to feed himself, and he makes terrible health decisions, and sits around getting high, not to mention bad hygiene, which I think this qualifies as. Horrid diet resulting in terrible body odor is a hygiene issue. Slob. OP says, my Korean friend told me he once ate an entire dinner that consisted of nothing but celery once. Why? Because he had celery and didn't want to waste it. And then update comment 8, which is July 3rd, 2024, aka the next day, 2 days from the OG post. Final update. My husband gave himself food poisoning from all the raw honeycomb. He finally came to his senses after I sent him on a fridge shelf replacement adventure by himself and told him he can't come back until he finds one. It took him 13 hours and he had to go out of state because we have a weird Samsung smart fridge. So he got the shelf and hopped back into his car that he had been farting in all day long in 90-degree heat and almost vomited from the smell. Then he had to drive 6 hours with all the windows down, had to stop to buy Depends because he still had food poisoning, and finally made it home to apologize for eating like a 14-year-old boy and breaking my kitchen in trust. He also found a replacement barbecue cover and anchors for the towel bar he destroyed. P.S. The whole microwave, toaster, oven, coffee make debacle involved him tripping the little mini breaker on the outlet itself and not knowing how to reset it. It had a button that said reset, and pushing it turned all the appliances on again. The outlet was hidden behind the microwave, so maybe he's not a total dumbass because it took me a while to find it. PPS, it's 7:30 p.m. and he started a 14-hour brisket roast for the 4th. It smells amazing. I still don't know how he can cook like a barbecue pitmaster, but lacks the ability with a regular stove. He's like Superman if Clark Kent was a drooling idiot instead of a reporter. I honestly would have been less annoyed if he broke the lock on our grill cover and ate nothing but barbecue for 3 weeks. At least if the grill got stolen, then that's all his money lost. Story 4. OP's landlord has gas issues that cost him dearly. We moved into an apartment not knowing where the gas meter was, assuming it was in the basement, which we were directly above. 6 months into our lease, we were contacted by the gas company, Con Edison, saying the gas meter was in our unit and they needed access to it for an upgrade or we will be fined. That is when we discovered our landlord had built a wall over the effing gas meter. The landlord is refusing to take the wall down. We explained that to Con Edison, and they said it was our responsibility to provide access, and the wall is between us and our landlord. No, it's between us and the effing gas meter. Until they can replace the old meter, we will be charged $100 a month. I asked them if they would come and take the wall down if we gave them access to our unit. They said they didn't have the authority to do so. I'm not sure how else I'm supposed to give access besides taking a sledgehammer to the wall myself. What are my legal options here? This seems crazy to me, and I'm pissed to be charged for a situation I have absolutely no control over. Update. After getting stonewalled by the gas company's customer service, I found the personal cell of the SVP customer relationships and called her. Her office got on it and is having an inspector come out next week. After they document the situation, I will contact code enforcement. I've been extremely tired lately and completely forgot to mention that there's a small peephole in the wall you can read the meter through. I can't find the emergency shutoff valve either, anywhere in the kitchen or in part of the wall I can see into. I think it's further up in the wall. The reason I'm tired is we have a colicky newborn baby, so we're bracing for the possibility of moving with a newborn. And then we have an update post on June 8th. This is unfortunately not an update on how the situation resolved. New and interesting legal problems are coming up. Following the advice of commenters on the original post, we called 311 and got both a referral for the free consult with a housing lawyer and filed a DOB complaint. An hour after we filed the complaint, our landlord called us fully freaking out. He said, according to the terms of our lease, we would be liable for any of his legal fees, including the fines from the DOB, which he said would be tens of thousands. He then accused us of making all the other DOB complaints on the building, which include leaky gas pipes and our fire escapes being death traps. Nice to know. He told us it would be in our best interest not to let the DOB inspector in. So we let the building inspector in. The wall covering the gas meter is only the tip of the, wow, you really shouldn't do that with the gas pipes, iceberg. The building inspector filed a violation and gave our landlord 48 hours to fix all the issues. The lawyer we did a consult with laughed when we told him all this. We called him back after the first consult. He said his retainer is $250, and we're waiting until the end of the day to decide if we should hire him. Our best case scenario at this point would be for the landlord to do enough to keep the unit inhabitable for another month, and then let us out of our lease in mid-August. We used the documents shared on my first post to find all the other obvious code violations in the unit, and inform the landlord about all of them at once. Hopefully, we can annoy him into letting us quit our lease. Any additional advice would be welcome. We are still processing how bonkers this situation is. Update. The landlord just sent us a bill for $7,500. Final update came on August 19th. Hi, I'm the person whose landlord built a wall over the gas meter and then tried to force me to pay their DOB fines. I wanted to update because the way this shook out was legally interesting. After my last post, we hired a lawyer to review our situation and dig into some public records. My landlord took down the offending wall in front of the meter, but was still demanding the $7,000. We requested records from the Housing and Community Renewal Division and the DOB, and also from some other databases my lawyer had access to. Here are all the ways my landlord done effed up. He improperly filed paperwork to set up the LLC he used to hide his ownership of our building from tenants. He improperly handled funds for our security deposit. He violated the warranty of habitability and would need to pay us back at least 30% of all the rent we had paid, about $8,000. He appears to have illegally deregulated our unit, which was rent stabilized before he bought the building, and would be liable under state law for the overcharged rent and treble damages. Unknown exact amount, but a lot. He had retaliated against a good faith DOB complaint with an illegal fine, and any attempt on his part to collect it would entitle us under state law to treble damages, about $20,000. Despite what he believed, in New York, the clause that we have to pay his legal fees also applies to him if the judge ruled in our favor, another few $1,000s. All that being said, we're still bound by the terms of our lease, which required us to find a new tenant to take our place if we wanted to leave. The lawyer told us that if we just left, a unilateral surrender of the unit, state law said our landlord had a duty to mitigate. That is, to fill the unit as quickly as possible, and charge us only for the hopefully short time it was empty. However, all evidence points towards my landlord being a greedy mother effer, and we expected that a unilateral surrender, while the most ethical option from our perspective, we didn't want to convince another innocent person to live there, would likely lead to a long legal battle. Our lawyer was delighted by the prospect of savaging this man in court, but acknowledged going to housing court could make renting again more difficult for us. We were pretty conflicted about how to proceed. It really feels like when you're dealing with somebody like my landlord, you should just be able to go in front of a judge and say, "Your Honor, F this guy." But unfortunately, contract law still protects a-holes. So here's a bit of backstory not in my last post. I've been living with a disability for the last 20 years. We don't have to get into details, but it's psychiatric and neurological. And when I first got diagnosed, my medical team basically said, LMAO, yeah, you're effed. maybe apply for Social Security. Despite that, I've managed to work full-time at a demanding job, and my symptoms have been under control. Then I got pregnant. I had a horrible pregnancy with painful complications during as well as postpartum. I was hospitalized multiple times, and I was also dealing with problems at my job. You can look at my post history. It's been a crap Sunday of a year. By the time the situation with my landlord came to a head, my health was extremely dire and getting worse. My parents, who I have a great relationship with, they're the top shelf of boomers, offered to take us in while I got back on my feet, but we had to break our lease first. I didn't include any of this sob story in my first post because it wasn't legally relevant, or that's what I thought. Turns out, New York has had a law in the books for a while that if an elderly person's health deteriorates, they're allowed to break their lease without penalty if they're moving either to a care facility or to live with family. In 2019, the state amended that law to include disabled people. I discovered this law by accident. I never told my lawyer about my health problems, and when I brought it to him, he said I should be covered under the law. I got letters from my doctors outlining my disability, as well as a letter from my parents confirming I would be living with them, rent-free for 6+ months, and detailing what care they would be providing. My lawyer sent those along to my landlord, along with a letter explaining that my right to move under state law trumped his lease, and if he tried to haul me into housing court, the judge was going to get the full list of all his sins and we would counterclaim for upwards of $30,000. He caved immediately and let us use our security deposit for last month's rent. Our security deposit was several $100s less than our monthly rent. We moved out this week and so far have heard nothing from our former landlord. Our lawyer is on standby, but the matter seems settled. So, an unsatisfactory conclusion by Reddit standards. I found my post on some repost subs when I started getting random followers. Sorry to not deliver on juicy drama, but we wanted to avoid going to court. My parents have a large house in New England on a wooded lot in a quiet suburb, and already our quality of life is 1,000% better. I wake up every morning and sit with my dog and baby on a big porch looking out at trees. My son actually got to touch grass for the first time in his life. All of our friends and family live here, and after many months of being sick and isolated, I'm planning Sunday dinners. This was the absolute best outcome for me and my family. And then OP gave an update in the comments. LMAO, every time this resurfaces, my friends send me the link. There actually is a further update. Con Edison contacted me 2 months ago, trying to get into the unit to install a new gas meter. They still, 2 years on, have not been able to access the unit or get in touch with my landlord. The current tenants, if they exist, never turn their gas on and don't have an account with Con Ed. I told the whole story to the representative in charge of their installation team and said, God bless and good luck. They made a note in their system not to call me again. Moving in with my parents could not have been better timed because both my wife and I were impacted by the tech market going nuts. We're good now though and saving up for a house. We also lucked out because the county we moved to has amazing early intervention services and our kid ended up having special needs, looking like an autism diagnosis. This also brought to light that I was misdiagnosed years ago and probably also have autism, which solves some medical mysteries, I guess. This is just like a wacky story, man, and the landlord is just a greedy piece of crap, and I'm glad that he got his comeuppance and got set straight, but I mean, who would want to live in that unit after all of this stuff got exposed and came to light? That's just crazy. Glad OP was able to get out of there and move on with their life. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for ignoring my husband and visiting my son on the 4th of July? I, 40F, have been married to my now husband Joe for 15 years. I have a son, Matt, 22, from my previous relationship with Jake. Right after I graduated high school, I moved into Jake's house. He passed away 3 years later from cancer. 2 years after that, I met Joe, and we got married a year later. Joe moved into my house, which was owned by my deceased husband. When my son turned 18, Joe apparently told Matt he had to pay $500 a month for rent and utilities. Matt told him that he actually owned the house we live in, and because he wanted to be vindictive, said Joe could pay $1,000 a month to him or get out. My husband didn't believe him, but I confirmed that this was Matt's house and we couldn't force him to do anything. Rent didn't matter to Matt because his dad left him a fortune to cover expenses for the rest of his life. I really wish Joe had talked to me about this before saying anything because we have 3 other sons. I'm a middle school teacher and my husband works in a factory, so our combined income is only $75,000. Here, everyone has their own room with a huge backyard and pool. We could never afford to own or rent a place like this otherwise. My husband was shocked and tried to apologize, but my son didn't accept it and insisted he had to pay or leave. The most we could afford was a 2-bedroom apartment in a bad neighborhood. I told Joe that uprooting our kids from a good school district and their friends because of his mistake wasn't an option. A month passed, and my husband hasn't paid his rent. When my son asked for it, my husband laughed and said he wasn't paying. My son gave him an eviction notice. My husband suggested we go to his parents' house, but I refused and said either he pays or he goes by himself. He paid and has continued to pay since then. However, my husband refuses to talk to Matt. Other than that, everything in the house is perfect. My ex also left my son a lake house in Florida. My son graduated college and wanted to take us on vacation to celebrate before he starts law school. My husband was excited, but my son quoted him $800. He explained that a grown man shouldn't be taking a handout. Joe stormed off. This morning, the 5 of us plus Matt's girlfriend were headed out the door. Joe yelled at me and couldn't believe I was going. I told him I'm not going to let me and the kids suffer for a mistake he made trying to be macho. I left, and my husband sent me a text message saying he was disappointed in me for siding with my son instead of him and for turning the kids against him. Am I the a-hole? I did leave a few things out. After reading the replies, I thought to add some things. I technically never married my ex. He was 50 when we had our son, so he had a really good job and a few properties. I never told Joe that I didn't own the house because he never would have agreed to staying in a house that my ex owned. So I handled all finances. Joe would just pay me his portion of utilities and bills. A lot of you guys are saying that I didn't handle the situation, but I believe I handled it to the best of my ability. When the situation first happened, I told Joe I really love him and would love to remain a family with a decent quality of life. But if he couldn't remain in this household, I would agree to a divorce of him. He begged me to not divorce and said he'll just pay my son the money. I thought that was the best way to handle the situation. Also, our finances are separate, so it's not taking away from me or the kids, but Joe doesn't really have money for his hobbies and interests, which was a problem for a while until he learned to just get over it. Update. So I took your advice to try and solve the situation. I asked Matt why Joe paying rent is necessary. Matt told me it isn't and that he hasn't touched the money Joe gave him. It's in a bank account. I asked him why he's doing this then. Matt told me Joe has never apologized for demanding rent money to begin with. I was confused and said Joe told me he apologized. Matt explained he never got an apology and when he does, Joe can stop paying rent and get the money back. I called Joe and asked why he's never apologized to Matt, and he was honest with his answer and said because Matt disrespected him in his house, and he should be the man of the house and have authority, but was embarrassed when he found out about the house because he realized that Matt was actually in control of him. I asked what was his full intentions when he asked Matt to pay rent. Joe said it was to help lessen the bills. Joe only makes $2,500 a month, and $500 went to bills, another $500 went to the kids, and another $250 on groceries. He also helps his parents out. He had nothing at the end of the month for his personal expenses, and this $1,000 a month definitely did not help. He thought about apologizing, but he said his ego wouldn't let him. Joe said he loves Matt, but doesn't think he could ever forgive him. I told him he started this mess, and honestly, if he thought I owned the house, it wasn't his place to charge my son rent. He just hung up the phone, so that's where we stand. I don't know what to do now. Let's check out relevant comments here. This was a downvoted commenter. Parents expect rent from adult children all the time. It helps teach them responsibility. OP replies, no, that is not good. Unless your child is failing in life, there's no reason to charge your child rent. If you charge your child rent as soon as they turn 18, you've never seen your kids as children, but as burdens. There are so many other ways to teach your child responsibility that doesn't involve taking money from them. If you expect rent from your child, who's trying to better their life, you're not a good parent. The downvoted commenter replies, but it's okay for your son to extort money from his stepdad. Your son views your husband as a burden, and you want to live comfy instead of being with your husband and father of 3 of your children. You're getting with a man 32 or so years older than yourself when you're fresh out of high school tells a lot about what type of person you are. OOP replies, my son did not choose to be my son. I choose to be his mom, and Joe definitely chose to be his stepdad. It's not extortion if he's just paying half the typical rent around the neighborhood. Why would I leave out my other child if I have the chance to be with all 4? I hope you don't have kids, and definitely don't become a step-parent. And now, update was posted on July 16th, which was 12 days later. When we got home, Joe's parents were there. Me, Matt, Joe, and his parents had a talk. They asked me how I can let Matt treat him this way and that a wife should back her husband up. Before I could talk, Matt said, and a man who marries a mother should treat her kids like his own, but he hasn't been doing that for the past 15 years. I asked Matt, what is he talking about? He said every time I went on one of my teacher conferences or went on vacation, Joe would leave him at home by himself and take the other boys out to do something fun. He always disguised it as it was kid stuff and I wouldn't like it, but tell you I didn't want to go. At 18, he actually planned on moving out, but COVID happened, so he just decided to stay. I asked Joe if it was true, and he looked at me and said, yeah, he shouldn't have to take care of someone else's kid. His parents looked disgusted, and his dad just went off on him and said he didn't raise him like this. I yelled at him and told him to get the F out. He pleaded that he was sorry and that he realized that he was wrong with how he felt. His dad told him to leave, and when my husband tried to get in their car to go home with them, they said absolutely not and that he was on his own. He tried to go to his brother's house, but when he heard the full story, he said no, because he has kids and would be upset if their stepmom treated them horribly. From what I heard, he's staying with a friend. I had divorce papers given to him at his job. He texted me and asked if we can meet. We met at a cafe, and he said he was really sorry and has been for a long time, and that he never meant to hurt me or Matt, but that he said it was hard to love another man's child. I just left. He's filed the papers, so I guess our divorce is about to start. I apologized to Matt for being a bad mom. He's fine, and our oldest son heard the conversation and doesn't want anything to do with his dad. The youngest two still spend time with him. So it sounds like stepdad's just a worthless deadbeat that is too proud to admit a mistake. If an 18-year-old is having to teach you a life lesson, you need some help. So totally the right move to ditch him and move on. But yeah, no, this guy's pretty sorry. Story 6. My 27M, GF 22F of a year slept with another guy while we were, quote, taking it slow, a month into dating me. I've been with this girl I'll call Jess for close to a year now. Since specifics matter here, we started dating around last Thanksgiving, but it was only about a month later when we said we were in an official relationship. I really like this girl from the get-go, and we've gotten very close since then, and we're actually planning on moving in together soon. Here's the problem. Recently, Jess and I ran into a guy at a small get-together with mutual friends. They exchanged a weird look, like there was something between them, but I didn't think too much of it at the time. During the party, something came up about the place Jess went to for a date. The time was clear since it was a Christmas market in my town. And again, I thought something was off about the guy. Well, later that night, I actually get a text from him. He got my number from one of the mutual friends, but said, "Hey, I don't know you, but I thought you should know that Jess and I hooked up right after Christmas." I confronted Jess about this, and I could tell she tensed up right away. She got this sad look on her face, but confessed right away. She said she had met this guy on Tinder and hooked up a couple times, but stopped any contact before we became official. She said she wasn't sure we would get into a relationship at that time, but she still felt bad that I found out this way. She said she considered telling me, but was afraid it would ruin things between us. I told her I needed some time to think and proceeded to get drunk that night and ignored her texts. The thing is, I feel very betrayed, and I'm really considering ending things. Sure, we weren't official when this happened, but we had already been on multiple dates at that time, and I thought it was pretty clear that we were moving towards a full-fledged relationship. On my side, I had no interest in pursuing other girls at that point because I only wanted to be with Jess. And on her end, she was definitely hinting at us evolving into a couple and strongly hinting at exclusivity. The other part that kills me is that during this early stage, Jess specifically said she wanted to take things slow physically until we knew each other better. But during this same time, she hooks up with a guy she barely knew from Tinder. When I asked her this, she said it's different because she took it slow with me specifically because she thought we would get into a relationship, but it was somehow different with a casual hookup. That logic makes zero sense to me. I don't really want to talk about it with my friends because I think they would hate Jess if we end up staying together, but I would like to hear opinions on here. Would you stay in a relationship like this if things were going well but the beginning was so shady? TLDR, my girlfriend met up and hooked up with a guy while we were dating but not official while she was taking it slow with me. Let's check out some relevant comments here. User 1 says, "In my opinion, if you're dating someone and moving towards a serious relationship, you don't freaking bang other people. This would be a deal breaker for me, but you do you, man. If you can't get past it, then end it. OP says, yeah, that's how I feel as well. It would have been one thing if she was just talking to other guys in the early stages while we were still defining things. Of course that's fine and normal, but it feels like a slap in the face that she found another guy to sleep with after we had already gone on quite a few dates and I made it clear I thought we were moving towards a serious relationship, which she seemed to also acknowledge. There's no way she didn't know I would feel hurt that she did that. And then OP also added to a deleted comment. Yeah, her logic made no sense to me. She tried to explain that with guys she wants to be in a relationship with, she wants it to feel special and wants to build an emotional connection. But for guys she sees no future with, she sometimes just wanted some physical fun that meant nothing. But I just can't wrap my mind around that. It feels like a gut punch that as we were getting closer and building a connection, she didn't want to be intimate with me, but instead preferred to find someone else. No matter how she rationalizes it, it's hard to not feel like a second choice of sorts. And then an update post on June 20th, which was 23 days later. As the title says, I decided to break up with Jess. I kept going back and forth because I was worried I was throwing away a great thing over something that happened in the past. But the problem is I thought I really wouldn't be able to get past it. I can't help what she did was really crappy. Yes, I know that technically she did not cheat, but she knew that I wanted a real relationship and that we were potentially moving in that direction. But meanwhile, she expected me to plan and pay for interesting dates, court her, and prove that I was worthy of her while she happily hooked up with randos who basically did nothing but show an interest in effing. F that. In a follow-up conversation, it also came up that her friend sort of guided her to act like this, that she should basically allow herself to have fun and to keep her casual options open, but with me to make me work for it and show that I wasn't just looking for sex, but was capable of being a committed partner. The whole thing just seemed so manipulative and ugly. And these were also mutual friends who I considered to be nice girls, and now my friends as well. Now I never want to see any of those pieces of crap ever again. Anyway, I know this is starting to sound a bit like a rant, lol, but I felt pretty pissed off and basically called it quits. The actual breakup was actually quite unpleasant. No harsh words were exchanged, but Jess cried and we kind of talked about some happy times. I guess that's the hardest part about this. Like, I don't think she's a bad girl, and maybe we could have had a nice future together like we did over the past few months. But in the end, I do think I made the right decision. I want to be with someone who treats me well from the get-go, not someone who manipulates me while playing games just so she can have her cake and eat it too. NTA, I think that this is the proper resolution. I think that even in the instance of trying to understand or forgive what she did, it just sounds like OP was just never going to let it go. So this is something that was always going to be on the back of his mind and ultimately poison the relationship. So I think the right call was made here. You know, they're still young. They'll be okay. But yeah, NTA.